If your business cannot run without you for 2 weeks, it's not ready. I do a lot of on-site visits, and most of the employees tell me they really like their owner, they really respect him, but they wish he would quit meddling with stuff.
So I told my group after a couple months of doing this, I'm like, I think I'm the problem. All the little things that were going wrong, you just can't see it. Because when you leave the office for a day and they can't get a hold of you and they just got to start figuring it out, it's amazing how much smoother things will just go.
A really big tip for anybody listening that's an owner, if you want to break this cycle of employees that can't make decisions, implement what I call a 10-minute rule. 10-minute rule is
Ricky Kuntz is the business owner of Kuntz Truck Repair LLC and shop manager at Rick Kuntz Trucking Inc. Starting in his father's shop at 15, he built his own heavy-duty repair business into a growing fleet-focused operation in Northeast Ohio, leading a team specializing in Class 8 truck repair and maintenance.
I looked at your Google reviews. You guys have amazing Google reviews. Because you have to understand, automotive repair has the #1 complaints in the Better Business Bureau. Do you have any tips or tricks like how you've been able to keep customers happy?
The biggest thing was just our culture is treat the customer properly. Because we get guys that would come from dealers or other shops and just talk down on the customers. And I'm like, man, to pay our bills.
I honestly think one of the biggest disconnects we have in customer service is Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Bay. I'm your host, Peter Cooper, and today I have Ricky Kuntz from Kuntz Truck Repair. Thanks for being on today.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate you having me on the show.
So tell me a little bit about your operation. What type of truck repair shop are you, and give me kind of your background on running a shop.
Yeah, so we are in Northeast Ohio. I started out back when I was younger, 15, working in my dad's shop. He owns 30 dump trucks. So I worked alongside the old guy, the shop after school. So I did that for a while, and we have these brokers. We haul a lot of asphalt, and their truck kept breaking down, and they couldn't get it in. The dealers were 3-4 weeks out. So I started working on it, and then they kept coming more and more. So I started my own business on the side, fixing their trucks in 2019, and it just grew and grew. And it was just me and one guy just working on the weekends alongside fixing my dad's fleet. We got a couple of bigger contracts for some really big fleets, about 200 trucks. So it went from me and one other guy to 8 guys in like 8 months, and it just was insane. So today we got 9 techs, myself, and then an office lady. We do majority Class 8 vehicles. We do some smaller Class 6 stuff, but we try to stay away from that as much as possible. We do a lot of van trailer repair, flatbed, dump truck, so pretty much anything.
So it sounds like you're a general repair shop, like you don't hyper specialize in anything specifically.
No, we have an alignment rack, and we kind of getting into DPFs, cleaning, and a system called Recore, where we push them out, press new centers in.
And is that specialization, really working on the whole DPF system, has that helped you being able to do that stuff in-house?
Oh, yeah. We've gotten really good. One of my lead techs is amazing at wiring. So we've been really good in our area with figuring out DPF problems, even from the local dealerships. But now being able to press them out and stuff has helped a lot.
So tell me, because you've grown incredibly fast and you've scaled really, really quickly, how did you keep yourself out of the shop? Because I imagine that you probably discovered at some point that getting back in the shop was not the thing you needed to do as an owner. What have you been able to do to keep yourself out of the shop?
Yeah, I'm in that transition phase. I'll still struggle with that from like last week. I was stuck in the shop a little bit, but it's kind of more like a funny story. We were out at a customer's lot. Very nice people. I won't mention any names, but they own a small trucking company. I was out working on their truck. This guy's like 78 years old, just had cancer treatments. He has no one to run the place, so he's out there just like struggling. And when I seen that guy, I'm just like, that cannot be me, and I cannot do this. And when I'm 70 to 80s, if I'm working on trucks, then something went really wrong. So that's when I really started implementing. I started out with just 1 day a week. I just did office work. And at first I felt so guilty because felt like I should be out there working beside these guys. But the more and more I did it, the more I realized how much faster and better we grew. We went from just growing very haphazardly to tons of issues, to the more time I spent in the office, the smoother things were getting, is what I found. So pretty much I've nothing else, I at least spend 2 whole days every single week, Monday through and the weekdays in the office no matter what, because just the pain of when I go out there and work for too much, it just sends you so far backwards. It's amazing. And the more you do it, the more I've learned to realize. And like I said, I just do not want to be 70 years old wrenching on stuff. I mean, I like wrenching on stuff, but if that's where I got to be in this business, then it's just not good.
Yeah, and I think that's a big observation that a lot of shop owners are unable to grow, not only personally, but from a financial standpoint, the business. They're unable to grow until they recognize that their place really isn't in the shop anymore, and it's in the office. And I talk to owners all the time, and I tell them, look, if you are absolutely dedicated that you have to go out and turn wrenches, then you really have to have a cold, hard look at this, and maybe you need to hire someone else to run your business for you. And that happens. I mean, one of my businesses, I had a transportation company, and I could not hire mechanics that could work on buses. I had a bus company. And I made that decision. I made the decision and said, look, I really am not ready to be a manager of that level. I would rather turn wrenches. I can't find anyone that can do this. I can go out and find people that can run businesses. Like, there's plenty of those people out there. And I did that. I actually went back out into the shop, hired someone to run the shop or run the office, and I was happy. And it was great for a long time. And so I think that's one of the things owners have to really look at is it's what I call, who do you want to be when you grow up? And if you want to be 65 years old and out there still mounting and demounting tires, hey, if that's your thing, go for it. But I think a lot of us admit to ourselves, we don't see too many old tire guys.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect point too. And coming to the realization, you can't do both. I mean, we all want to, but it's like what's the 4 burners? You got those 4 burners of life. You got family, friends, work, and fitness, and you can only do 2 at one time. And I mean, I think we all try to do it all, but the more I do it, the more I realize it's impossible. You either got to work on the stuff or you got to run the shop, but you just can't do both, or it's not going to work out very well in the long term.
And it's big picture thinking. And I think that I would challenge, so this is one of the things I do is I challenge shop owners, work from home 1 day a week. If you want to figure out if your processes are being followed and you want to figure out if your communication is sound within your business, work remotely 1 day a week. And with that also, you'll be surprised how much more productive you become and how you can really stop and think big picture. Because we have this tendency of owners of, we always want to help fix things or we're just helping out. And a lot of owners don't realize that the minute you leave your office, you no longer are the owner. So if you're the owner of the business, then you're running the show. Owners need to remember that the minute you walk out of your office, you're not the owner anymore. If you go out to help, then you need to help within the parameters of being an employee. So if you have a service advisor that's out and you're going to go answer phones and create work orders and do things like that, then you need to do it within those rules that you've set forth for your employees. Because honestly, 9 times out of 10, when an owner thinks they're helping, they're just screwing stuff up. Like they are absolutely derailing 9% of what goes on. And I do a lot of on-site visits. I was just did an on-site last week. And one of the things I do with owners is I tell them flat out, like, this is going to be a painful process. So, working with me as a consultant is like going to the doctor. When you tell the doctor, hey, I got a pain, and he's going to start poking around and figure out where the pain's at. And that's kind of like what happens with me. And when I find the pain, that tells me where we need to focus. So I actually tell the owner, you got to stay in the office. I'm going to walk around the shop. I'm going to talk to your employees. We're going to try to get a real understanding. And most of the employees tell me they really like their owner. They really respect him, but they wish he would quit meddling with stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly. So what I told my group after a couple months of doing this, I'm like, I think I'm the problem. All these problems I thought we had, I think it was me. And it is funny you say that because you learn so fast all the little things that were going wrong. You just can't see it because, man, when you leave the office for a day and they can't get a hold of you and they just got to start figuring it out, it's amazing how much smoother and how much better things will just go.
Well, and a really big tip for anybody listening that's an owner or even a manager, if you want to break the cycle, employees that can't make decisions, they just can't make a judgment call and they can't do anything on their own. Implement what I call a 10-minute rule. And the 10-minute rule is if they call you, if they reach out to you, whatever it is, you cannot respond for 10 minutes. And I guarantee you will be surprised at what percentage of things they figure out on their own. Like if you, as an owner, think about that anytime you were in a meeting or a doctor and doing anything and you were unreachable for a couple of minutes. How many times did you get a call and when you called them back, they had already figured it out?
Oh, yeah. Almost every time. And that's when I started realizing that I need to stop fixing all the problems for them.
And that's absolutely, and I want owners to think about that, because what that is that's a sombering reality that you really are the problem. And I mean this in the nicest way, but owners have to understand you are everything there's right with your business, and you're also everything that is wrong with it. And when owners can't accept that they are the problem, it's kind of like an alcoholic. If you can't admit that there's a problem, you'll never change. And I'm really not trying to get people to be down on owners, because you have accomplished something. You've accomplished something great that very few people can do. The question is what level do you want to, what's the next step? Like, if you're okay with just being where you're at, that is fine. Most owners claim that they're not. Unfortunately, they're not willing to, change themselves to become the person the business needs them to be, which means take your toolbox home.
Yeah. No, exactly. No, that's what I would like to have, at least 2 or 3 more locations, and I can't even run one while working on it. Once I realize that's going to be my goal, to have 2 more locations from what I have to get other people. And plus, it just makes everyone's life so much easier because they get to run the shop. I'm in charge, and it's just so many less chiefs to go through, so much less confusion. My life has been a lot easier. Their life has been a lot easier because they're not saying one thing. I come out 2 minutes later and like, oh no, we're doing this now because I'm back out here working. It just causes so much stress on everyone. So that's when I realized it was just me for the most part. I mean, you got the people who are late and stuff like that, but for that side of it, yeah, you got to realize that you're the problem at some point when you're holding up the natural way of things.
Well, and this is a natural evolution of humans too. I tell people that owning a business is like walking up a set of stairs. The first couple stairs are easy, but once you start carrying all this baggage of trying to do everything yourself, it gets so much harder to keep climbing. And you go through levels, like, you realize that, okay, well, I made it the first couple of steps and that wasn't so bad, but now the next 10 steps, they keep getting taller and taller. And it has to do with, honestly, levels of complexity. And that brings me to a question. You mentioned that you're interested in having multiple locations. Where do you see yourself in 3 years? Like, have you planned that far out? Are you planning annually?
Yes, yeah, we actually just started that a couple years ago, which is another thing that's helped a lot. But our goal for within 5 years is to have a second location going. So within 3 years, we have 1 mobile guy now. We'd like to have up to 5 mobile guys in the 3 years. And then within 5, we'd like to have a second location open.
So I have a question for you. What if you could do all that in a year?
Yeah, no, I think about that sometimes too.
Well, think about this. Okay, just think about this. If you decided that you were going to do all that in the next year, would that make it much more clear what you had to do and what path and only path you could take to get there?
Yes. Yeah.
And see, that's one of the things that I challenge people on when I work with them is why? Why 5 years? Why can't you do this in a year? You're in Ohio. There's a big trucking industry there, right? There's a lot of regional, a lot of vocational, a lot of dump trucks, a lot of that kind of stuff. And my question to people is, why can't you just go buy a shop that already exists? Like, there are so many owners out there that are 65, 70 years old that their family wants nothing to do with the business. And the owner has to sell. He either has to sell or he has to close it. And a lot of them are willing to do what's called seller finance, where they will literally sell it to you on payments. You don't have to even go to a bank. You just do it through them. So that's an option for a lot of people. But really what I'm getting at is I really try to push people to think bigger. I think as owners, we tend to think a little too cautiously in a lot of ways because we don't think we can do it. And that's one of the things I really want owners to do is stop giving yourself such a big timeline. If you give yourself 5 years to do something, what you do today does not matter. But if you give yourself a year to do something, every single day matters. Every day has to be down to kind of a science of this is what we have to do. And I'm not saying put unrealistic expectations or burdens on yourself and your staff. I just challenge people to think a little bit more aggressively, like, why 5 years?
No, and that's anytime I do long-term planning, sometimes you kind of put these limits on yourself. And you said the 5 years, so instead of doing it sooner, you literally just drag your feet, and then the last year, you do it when you could have just done it in 1 year. So I've thought about that before too when planning. It is kind of like a double-edged sword because I've done that before. I'm like, oh, we're going to do this in 2 years, but I don't do anything the whole first year, and the second year, the whole thing is done. So it's like, why wouldn't I just done that the first year?
Well, and that's the thing is you have to look at it, Ricky, is you have a track record. Like, look at your business that you have now. and look at the very first year you were in business. And at the end of the first year, did you have a business? So you know how to do it. You've done it before. You've got a track record. All you got to do is just do it again.
Yeah, I know. I know. That's where we tripled our business within 8 months. Did you see that? I'm like, you did it once, you can do it again. So yeah, I think, yeah, sometimes it is easy to put those restrictions on ourselves. And even almost not knowingly, because I did it there, not even thinking about it. I was like, oh, 5 years, that sounds like a good, with no reasoning for that timeline. It just what I was thinking.
I'm not trying to really call anybody out that way. It's just, I'm a big believer in challenging beliefs. Like, where did the 5-year number come from? It's usually just something we picked out of the air. And it's like, okay, what if we look at this analytically, what do we need to have another location? Well, you either have to buy it or you have to start it from scratch. Okay. If you started from scratch, what do you need to do it? You need this, this, and this. Okay. Well, to run a business, what do you need? You need 2 things. You need customers, you need employees, right? And, it's a pretty simple path. I mean, we have a tendency of making things as humans way more complicated than it needs to be. And I'm not by any means saying running a business is easy, but this also really emphasizes, are you ready? So many owners say, I want to own a business. I want to own a second location. And the very first thing I tell people to do when they say I want a second location is I tell them, you need to leave for 2 weeks. Go on vacation. Because if your business cannot run without you for 2 weeks, it's not ready. And you're not ready, frankly, because honestly, the way your business operates when you're not around is a reflection of you as a human, where you're at as a leader. And it's really a really amazing tool for owners to evaluate the business and see how well people do. And you would be surprised, Ricky, how well your people do without you. Now, they're not going to do it exactly the way that, you do it. Really, we need to measure performance on outcomes. So we really need to, give our people the flexibility to make decisions. And one of the things I tell people is give people quantitative values for that. So if you have a service advisor and you expect that person to make a judgment call to make the customer happy, have you given them an authorization amount? In other words, if you give them a dollar amount that they're allowed to make a decision, and basically there's no ramifications. So if they want to give a guy a $200 discount, are they allowed to do that? You know what I mean? And those are usually the decisions, if you really look at it analytically, those are the type of decisions that get kicked back to the owner. They're what we refer to as judgment calls. But they're not really a judgment call if you've given them a set of parameters.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's my service provider. I give him, he's pretty much got full control. There's almost no restrictions on him. If I hear something down the road, then we'll deal with it later. But in the middle of it, and it's worked out. You just get over that. Once I get over that fear to give up that control, I mean, he's done awesome.
That's a really good point. I want to talk about fear for a minute. As an owner, do you have an example of a fear that you had running your business that you later found out was completely unjustified?
I think a funny one that even my dad said was silly, but to me, it felt that I thought I'd have a hard time finding customers where we're at. And it's turned out to be not close to true. I just thought, because it was like slow for and I had the regular customers, but like, man, we're just not growing at all. And yeah, we just did a little bit of Google advertising, and yeah, that changed very quickly.
Yeah, I think too of it is you're not, and I did some research on you guys. I looked at your Google reviews. You guys have amazing Google reviews. What do you count that as? Like, how is it that you have, because you have to understand this industry as a whole has the largest customer complaint of one of the only industries or any other industry out there. So if you look at Better Business Bureau, they have stats, and the automotive repair, when I say automotive repair, that term is misunderstood. Automotive means anything that's self-propelled vehicles. So in this space, automotive repair has the #1 complaints in the Better Business Bureau. So what do you have any tips or tricks, like how you've been able to keep customers happy?
The biggest thing was just our culture and this pretty much our first value is treat the customer properly, because we've seen a lot of stuff come from other places, and just some of the work they put out was not great. But if we do make a mistake, we treat the customer like they're the customer. Now, it doesn't mean that's a mistake we've also made is listening to the customer, and then you start following these rabbit trails of not even being the problem, but just treating the customer and put that into our culture. Because we get guys that would come from dealers or other shops and just talk down on the customers. And I'm like, man, they pay our bills. Like, but wherever shop they came from, they just get this, like, the customer's a bad part. I mean, they're paying all of us at the end of the day. So I think I just build the culture. I mean, customer is king at the end of the day. Without them, none of us have a job.
Yeah, and that reminds me of a saying. I actually had it printed out. It was framed on my wall, and it was right where technicians would walk into my office. It was right there front and center, and it said, all it takes for us to go out of business is for our customers to spend money somewhere else. And I think technicians, you're right, they lose sight of why they're really there. And you see it, and it's part of its natural mentality, because in the way a lot of shops are structured, we're disconnected from the customer. And I understand why we do it. It's an efficiency thing. But I used to teach technicians, that driver did not pull off the interstate and stop carrying his load today because he just wanted to come in and mess with you. Like, he genuinely experienced something. We sometimes do a bad job of getting that explanation and that information from the driver, but we need to have some essentially empathy. I mean, I think we need to teach technicians empathy, that this guy's not having the best day of his life. Like, nobody wants to have their truck towed in and be down for a couple of days. Like, they're not having a good day. It's kind of like, think about it, if you're a parent and you have to take your kid to the emergency room. You're not having your best day. That was not what you wanted to do today. You didn't plan for it. You didn't want it. And I really think technicians and people in this industry need to understand that. Like, I honestly think one of the biggest disconnects we have in customer service is empathy in this industry. And not ruinous empathy to where you're trying to give away everything for free, but empathy to the fact of understanding that this guy is not here to make your life worse. He just doesn't necessarily always know how to explain something to you.
Yes, yeah, and I think what helped me set that up at the beginning is I drove truck for like 4 years for my dad, where I owned my own truck. When you drive, it's not just sitting on your butt all day. Like, it is, but it's way tougher of a job. People don't realize how stressful it is to be out in the traffic. And like you said, yeah, they blow a tire at 3 o'clock. I mean, most of these guys are up at 3 a.m. So now they're not just sitting there being lazy. They're sitting here waiting till 5, 6 o'clock whenever they can get fixed. And they're talking 16, 18-hour days, and just realizing, like, it looks easy, but it's not an easy job. I mean, I quit it because I would never do it for a living. It's just not my thing. It's too tough. It's too stressful to be stuck in that thing. And so I think I've put that out in my text too. Like, I understand some of these guys make us angry, especially the way they talk to us, or because they're just frustrated. You gotta understand what a tough job that they have out there.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we can train service advisors to do too. And one tip I have for everybody is, you really only have to ask customers 2 questions. What is it doing that you don't want it to do? What would you like it to do that it's not doing? Because what we'll see too often is a customer will bring in a truck and say, oh, I need a water pump. So the service advisor will write it up, change the water pump. And we never ask, why do we need a water pump? Like, what makes you think you need a water pump? What have you done? What's going on? Is it overheating? Is it leaking? Like, why? And I think we lose sight of that too often. And what that leads to ultimately is we don't allow the technician to do their job, which is actually diagnose it. You know, I have a story of that, and I'll never forget this, because it's a really common problem on a DD15, DD13, that they lose a belt, right? And we all know from a technical background, it needs more than a belt. And you get service advisors that get so tunnel vision that they'll get a phone call from a customer and says, hey, I need a belt. And they're like, oh, it's a DD15. Just bring it in, we'll put a belt and a tensioner on it. And then the technician never looks at the whole truck. And they fail to recognize the fact that, okay, and this actually happened to us. We told the customer price before we looked at it. We pulled it in, we looked at it, changed the belt, changed the tensioner, started it up, completely never looked at the fact that the guy blew the whole bottom of his radiator out because he overheated the truck.
Yeah, I mean, we've done the same thing. I mean, one time a guy said, my clutch is going bad. I need a new clutch. Pull the whole thing and put a whole clutch in. It was never even the clutch. It was the front rear end. We never test drove it. And that's after that. I'm like, no, we have to confirm the complaint. Do not listen to the customer. You listen to them, but don't take, you know what I mean? They're not a technician. So.
And I think that's a idea that we all need to keep in this industry, which is trust but verify. Even with ourselves and our own employees. Like, we trust you as an employee, but we're going to verify the data. It's kind of funny you say that about a rear end. I had the exact same thing happen on a service call. Get out there and they're like, well, the clutch just needs adjusted. It's in the middle of the intersection trying to pull into the truck stop. Like, that's not normal. We get out there and it's like, okay, crawl underneath the truck. And we're like, why is the drive shaft spinning but the truck's not going anywhere?
Yeah, no, this truck got towed in, so we didn't even get towed back to right in the bay, and away we went.
And I think that's an example of tunnel vision that we all, you know, you have to understand a technician mindset, which is just fix it, just fix it, just fix it. And I think that that's really a big warning for us as managers and owners, is that so many of us were technicians. So we look at a problem and we look at it from well, we're just going to fix it. We're going to jump right in and we're going to fix this problem because I know how to solve the problem. And we really fail to recognize that we're not actually diagnosing our shop and our business the way we should. We're just jumping in and fixing it. And we fail to recognize what's causing the problem in the first place. We'll use tech efficiency. It's one I like to pick on a lot. Why are your technicians inefficient? I go to so many owner shops and they think they know, and they're trying to do all these things to make technicians more efficient. And they never step back and actually look at the whole shop as an ecosystem. How far does the technician have to walk to wash his hands? You know, we all tell a technician we want you to wash your hands before you pull that guy's truck out, but then he's got to walk 6 bays over to wash his hands. And I understand that we all are we deal with the constraints of the shop we're in. And it's not just about that. It's about thinking. Like, you can do things differently if you really try. But I challenge shop owners to think more holistically. Like, try to understand, why are these things happening, you know? And honestly, one of the big things we find is it's communication. Your communication internally in your business is horrible. It's unbelievably inefficient. And one way I can prove it is I just look at a technician and all we do is just count how many steps he takes in a day. And I can prove it pen to paper with facts that if we eliminate the number of steps they take in a day, they produce more work. And they're happier because they look at it and they realize that they're doing so much stuff that has nothing to do with fixing trucks.
Yeah, I mean, the communication part is so important, and you can never stop working on it also. Like, people get this point, like, oh, we're good now. No, it's just something you always got to work on. It's amazing how inefficiency all from bottom to the top we can be just on bad communication or just not saying what needs to be said.
And where is the information at? You know, that's one thing I challenge people is, if you want to fix your communication, get rid of verbal. Because there's two problems with verbal. Number one, once it's said, it's gone. And half the time, I mean, I literally watched this in a shop. I was in a shop a couple weeks ago, and the technician come up to the parts counter and said, "Hey, where's my rear main seal?" And the parts guy's like, I didn't order a rear main seal. And the technician's like, "Well, I asked you for one." And I looked at the work order and I looked at him and I said, "When did you ask for it?" "Well, I came up to the counter and I said, well, buddy, if it's not in writing, it's not real. Like, you didn't ask for the part. He didn't order the part."
Yeah, no, that's when we started texting. So anyone needs parts, we part of this group on the work phones, and you text it in because same thing would happen. I mean, these people my office lady's got so much going on. We have her order parts sometimes, my service advisor does. So no one even knew who was ordering parts. So now we condense it down, we put it in text messaging so we can always go back and look. And that has helped so much. But I mean, yeah, right, there's a perfect thing. Something doesn't get ordered. Now you could be a day or two set back on a part. I mean, on that truck.
Yeah, I think that's really important that operators, you know, owners and managers have to look at their shop software and look at it and say, is it really designed for what we do? Like, can we track parts? Do we know when the part's coming in? Do we know if it got ordered? Do we know who requested what and when? And that's really, we have to start. One of the very first things I do when I go to a shop is I ask them to show me all their workarounds. And what is a workaround? It's anything you do outside of your shop management software. And workarounds are usually inefficient because it's one of two things. It's either you don't know how to use the software you have, or you have a software that does not do what you need it to do. And I really would say a lot of owners need to evaluate that. Like, it's a big decision. So you really got to take your time when you're figuring out that. But it's such a limiting factor to so many businesses. And they don't understand how inefficient they're doing things from an office standpoint. Like, most office staff, believe it or not, if you actually measure it, because I've done the metrics, they're only about 30 to 40% efficient, meaning that the majority of their time is spent doing things that are non-productive because we haven't learned how to automate the process yet. Like, we'll use a perfect example, sending out invoices. A lot of software, especially the old legacy ones, you've got to hit print, then save it as a PDF, then draft an email, then try to remember, well, how many people get the email? Is it 4? Is it 5? I mean, I've had fleets that 6 different people got the email. You know, maintenance got it, dispatch got it. You know what I'm saying? And then you got to draft the email. And it's like, why can't we just automate that?
Yeah. Why isn't just, the end of the month, these ones just go.
So we've talked a lot about what your future plans are. And I'm going to ask you a really hard question. What is your biggest barrier to reaching your goals?
Man, I feel like there's a lot, but a lot of them we're working on, and a lot of what we've talked about today, the office inefficiency, some of those, sometimes we do have too many workarounds on certain things. But I think the biggest one, and probably has been one of our biggest failures that we've worked a lot on and way better now, which I think being part of a couple of different groups with different businesses, everyone's got the same problem, but is our hiring and retention plan. We used to just we'd hire, because we were just scared. We had tons of work. We just hired. First person that walked in, oh, they're good. We're not going to get another one, hire it. And that led us so many problems and heartache. And then we finally I had to pay a guy to leave after we hired him on. He was there for 2 days. I'm like, this isn't not even close to what we need. So I just literally paid him the rest of the week. I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. I know we just hired you, but here's a paycheck for this week, and I need you to pack yourself up and leave. And after that, I'm like, no, we're done. So we fixed that. We moved 3 to 4 interviews now with the same person before we ever even hire him, which has helped big time. But I think that is going to be our major people at the end of the day, as are going to be our
Just
biggest
remember, running a
barriers.
business is it's really easy if you don't have to deal with customers and employees.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think that's what Dave Ramsey says.
So one of the things I would tell you that I think a lot of owners need to try, and I would challenge you to try this too, is do what's called a practical interview or a working interview. And that is bring the guy in, let him work on the shop for a day. You get to interview him, see how he acts. And the other thing is too, is it's amazing how much more successful employees are when the employees that they have to work with buy in on it. So we would bring all the techs in from the shop and have a meeting at the end of the day after we had an interview. And I'm like, guys, tell me. And I literally had my lead tech one time. We were interviewing this kid. I'll never forget him. He showed up in sweats. He had sweatpants on and a man bun. And my lead tech at the time came to me about an hour in and said, you got to cut this guy loose. He's not going to make it. Like, there's no way. We're just wasting our time here. And I did. I just like, I handed the guy, because I pay people, you know, I was paying him like 20 or 30 bucks an hour cash. And I said, well, thanks for interviewing, man, but this is just not for you. You know what I mean? And cut him loose. But this amazing thing happens when you do that and they all have buy-in. They all have a vested interest in making sure that guy succeeds in the business, because they've now put, in a lot of ways, they put their word on the line. They said, yeah, we want to work with this guy.
Yeah. And that's why, unless as a manager, I'm not even involved in hiring much anymore, because it was just weird. I'd hire people and then this manager would have to fire them. I'm like, this just doesn't seem right. So I've been letting pretty much what a first shift, second shift manager, they get to hire their own people. Because you hire them, you got to fire them. Because it's just too weird for me to hire these guys. I felt like forcing them on them. They didn't like them, and then they got to fire them. It just was too weird. So that's why they get interviewed, and they pretty much, for the most part, get to hire their own people. Unless they have a question, then I'll sit on an interview. Or obviously, if it's a manager, I will. But
that's pretty amazing. I haven't heard too many owners that say that they let their people hire them and they're not that involved in it. And I mean, that really demonstrates a level of trust in your people that's not, honestly, it's not normal.
But I'm like, how am I going to open and hold out a case if I got to sit here and hire people for this first place?
Well, and that's exactly one of the things that I think too many of us do is we end up micromanaging. We think we're not, but if you look back at it objectively, you are. Like, why are you doing that? Why is a shop that has 100 employees, why is the owner interviewing technicians?
And it's not fair to them or their fellow employees. Because like I said, I've never worked with this guy in my life and I got to fire him, or I hire him and someone else got to fire him. It's just, that's why I'm like, this just is not fair. So at least if they hire him, if they make a bad hire, then they're the ones that's got to pay for it. And that's led to a lot better hires.
Ricky, thanks for being on today. Ricky Kuntz with Kuntz Truck Repair. Today we went over a couple of good topics with owners. A couple of big ones are, you know, growth plans and challenging ourselves to understand why we put the time limitations that we do. I challenge most shop owners that we can go a lot faster than we think we can. And we had a really good conversation about the hiring and retention of technicians, which I think is a really big issue in this day and age in this industry. Ricky, thanks for being on today.
Yes, thank you, Peter. I really appreciate you having me on. I learned so much from your podcast. I'm excited to see it grow. Thank you.